1978 Jeep CJ5, fiberglass body. Jeep was completely rebuilt before I purchased it. I had been looking for probably 5 years, pretty solid. I almost took a flight to Alabama, one to Vegas. The Alabama one I was really interested in. It was a 79 Silver Edition, which is the Jeep that my brother and I had when we were teenagers. So it was the exact same thing.
So you were definitely looking for one of these. You weren't looking for just a Jeep. You wanted a specific...
I was very specific in what I wanted in the Jeep. They were simple specifications. Had to be mid-70s CJ5, 3-speed, 304 motor. I wanted the headers with the side pipes. If it didn't come with that, I would have done that at that point in time, but those were the minimums. You see a lot now where people put in 360s, they put in 350s, they change the motor. I did not want that. You start getting into, especially in that vehicle, too much torque, too much power. That vehicle has a tendency to want to be on its roof instead of its wheels. That's what Jeeps were known for. The 304 was the right mix. You could have gotten them in a 6-cylinder. The 258 didn't want that. I would find them here and there out of the blue. Again, Friday night researching, I came across this one and I just sent a little message out to whoever it was. Hey, do you still have the Jeep? I'm interested in seeing this. Didn't hear anything back for a week. Every year, do a little trip to Chautauqua, New York. It's a fishing trip. I was up there and I got a message. Yes, still have the Jeep, still available. When we came home, we went down and we saw it. A little different than it looks now. Went down, drove it, bought it. At that point in time, it had 35-inch tires. It had a 4-inch suspension lift and a 2-inch body lift on it. Lifting up a CJ5 is a dicey thing to do. You're top heavy to begin with, and particularly the body lifts. I'm not keen on the body lifts, but that's what it was. It had plastic racing seats in it, but it was sized for her. And by that, I mean the seats were permanently mounted to the floor, and when I climbed in, the steering wheel was almost in my chest. It was very, very tight to fit into this Jeep. Okay, I can live with that. So we hopped in, turned the key, pulled out, and started driving on this little back road, and stop signs coming up to me. So I hit the brakes. I started hitting the brakes further. What they didn't tell me and forgot to tell me, and I sometimes forget to tell people who I let to drive this, is it does not have power brakes. And if you have ever driven a car without power brakes, you actually have to push the brake pedal, which if you do in your regular car, you're going through the windshield. This one, I went through the stop sign instead. So I'm like, okay, it doesn't have power brakes. I can live with this. I just need to know I have to push. Went back and made an offer and basically drove it home. CJ5 was the more popular one. And then 60 Minutes did a thing on the CJ5 just like they did on the Ford Pinto, saying the CJ5 rolls over too easily. Gave it a very bad name. CJ7 had a longer wheelbase, so the CJ7 didn't have the same rollover tendencies that the CJ5 had. By, I think, 1980, they pulled the CJ5 out and it was strictly CJ7s from there on out. We bought it. It's a beautiful color red, if you're a red fan. I'm not necessarily a red car fan. One of the first things I planned on doing was painting this thing. Yeah, obviously it hasn't been painted in 2 years and isn't going to get painted because the paint job on it was very well done and is immaculate, and I have a really hard time looking at a vehicle and saying the paint job is perfect on it, let's sand it and paint it again. I just can't do that. I've gotten used to the red. Instead of painting the first year, wintertime is the time to work on these vehicles because that only has a bikini top on it. I went to Corbeau Seats, who I used for the Barracuda as well. They make a lot of different racing style seats, but the one thing that they really do a fantastic job with is pick your car, and they have the mount that mounts their seat to whatever car you have. So when I picked a 1970 Barracuda, I got the mounting that mounts down to the bolt holes in a 70 Barracuda. The Jeep, it was just plop it in and be done with it. The other primary reason for the seat was to have an adjustable seat so that we could actually push the seat back and drive this thing. Right. The body lift was coming out and the 35-inch tires were coming off. We described the drive as squirrely. So you'll just be driving down the road and the next thing you know, you're going to the right or you're going to the left. It just decides on its own it wants to do this. I've been researching that a bit, trying to get rid of some of the squirreliness, but knocking the body down 2 inches, the tires down 2 inches, pulling that center of gravity back down.
What size tires are on it now?
33s.
33
inch, yeah. The biggest problem with owning a Jeep like this is storage, lockable storage. So when you go someplace, you have to think about what you take. A friend of mine that was doing the seat work on it, and I said, look, there's a couple of things I want to add to this. There's some storage elements that I want to add. You normally have a spare tire sitting out back here. And I said, at some point in time, maybe I do want a spare tire, but what I want is a box. And I said, I have an idea. Is if you look at the front of a trailer, and that's why it's angled the way it is, it follows the pattern of the front of a whatever type of trailer it is. It's a hauling trailer or something, camper camping trailer. It's a lockable storage box that you mount onto a trailer. I said, this is the perfect size of what I want. My idea was just to take a standard spare tire mount coming out of the back of the fiberglass.
Yeah.
He came up with a different idea. What he did was he welded 2 channels, left and right, underneath where the lights were, brought beams up on an angle, and then mounted the box to that. Whole purpose of that is if I want the lock box on there, it's on there. And I actually use a boat tongue lock system on the left side, so this is locked in. You can't get this off of the back side unless you actually have the keys to unlock it, but I can remove it. So if I don't want that on there, if I do decide to go into the woods or something like that, I don't want that banging around in the woods, I just take it off. If you bought a Jeep in the 70s, it came with a 3-speed transmission. Sure. There were some things that I want to maintain the authenticity of it. I know, again, people have upgraded them, put 4 speeds in them. 3-speed has its limitations. You wind through gears pretty quickly. You get up to 60 miles an hour and you're tacking higher RPMs in this vehicle. Honestly, why are you doing 60 miles an hour in a 1978 Jeep CJ5? That's going to be the bigger question, because you shouldn't be. It's really not designed for speed. It's more, looks, sound, and off-road. It's real easy to hop into an automatic, especially a car nowadays that doesn't, that pretty much almost drives itself, and you don't have to think about driving. And there's a time and place for that. When you get into cars like these, I actually want to drive. I want to have to think. I do want to work a bit driving these vehicles, and working a clutch, running through gears is something I like to do.
So you said you have to have the headers. How come?
Not just the headers. I wanted the headers and the side pipes. That's more a nostalgia thing for me. Where I grew up, we were kind of a secluded area, but we were a Jeep nation. We had a Jeep. My neighbor had a Jeep. Another guy had a Jeep. Another guy had a Jeep. Everybody had Jeeps. When you're a teenager, you don't buy 6-cylinder Jeeps. All right, I want 304, I want sound, I want make your presence known, basically. So yeah, the headers, that was a definite requirement. Even though I know there are some drawbacks to these types of headers, one issue that I had in the previous Jeep that I owned is probably every 2 or 3 years, the tailpipe would crack off, or the side pipe would crack off. The header would crack in half because it would rust over time and just snap off. A couple instances where I would be driving and all of a sudden I would be running open header, and it would be very, very loud at that point in time.
So what else have you done to the motor? Have you done anything else to it since you've had it?
Absolutely nothing. I have not touched the motor whatsoever. It had a 2015 battery in it. I played around having to fight the battery a few times until I decided just to strip the battery out of it and put a new battery into it. And a unique thing about that, but body design, and it is a really neat thing, is that the entire hood pivots open. The entire fenders and hood, everything opens up.
Grill, everything goes
right.
up there.
And what is neat about that is when you want to work on this vehicle, you have full access to every element. Very easy access. You're not climbing, reaching down, looking for spacing or anything. You just reach right into this. The drawback to it is what I just ran into when we dropped it down. When I lift it, it catches. It'll bump against the tires. If you look at a regular Jeep, there are chrome hinge pins that come up off the fender, and they're not on this one because, again, I don't have a hood there. Why would I need hinge pins to hold that hood down? Well, I want them on there.
Yeah,
I want it to look like a regular
right.
Jeep, so I want to add the hinge pins to it. Front fog lights look fantastic. I love the style because they are an older style. They're not, these big square LEDs. They have the rounded look to them. They're not wired to anything right now. They will be. I just haven't taken the time to wire them yet because I've had to play around with a few other things in this Jeep. I went with a 33 by 12.5. They were 35 by 12.5 or 15s. Yeah. It looked, I felt, with the 35-inch tires and the 2-inch lift, it looked Looney Tune-ish.
Like a stomper.
Yeah, it was just, it was too big, too much. I have talked about doors. If you look at the chrome mounts for the windshield, the pivot mounts, which again, it's a Jeep, I can actually drop that windshield down if I want to drop that windshield down. If you look at those mounts, they have the top hinge pin for the door, and I have considered adding the bottom hinge pin, and okay, I can put some type of door on this.
Half door or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. The next step is okay to go to the soft top. At that point, you have to add all the snaps to go around the sides and a couple brackets inside of the vehicle to do that. I have considered that, not because I'm going to drive this thing in the winter, not because I care if I do take it off-road and I hit a big mud hole that I'm going to get muddy. All fiberglass, all galvanized, take a hose to it, there's drain holes in it, hose it out, who cares? But more so because right now it is drivable from possibly late May, maybe into September. If I want to drive it to work, it's going to be driven June, July, and August, because otherwise I'm not driving it in 45-degree weather.
It's a good heater, but it's not that good.
No, it's not even a good heater. Trust me. It has its limited time to drive. With a soft top and doors on it, you can expand that time to go from April into October, possibly November. The other thing that was done on it is the backlights. Standard Jeep has light boxes, and the neat thing that was done on this one, they actually took LED taillights from boat trailer, so they're sealed lights. The added advantage of these types of lights, because they're used in a marine application is you can put them completely underwater. It's a family thing. A Jeep drives by a Jeep, that body style. You don't drive by another Jeep owner without waving. It's kind of the unwritten rule that, you know, you're going to wave to each other. And it can be a brand new 2020 Rubicon. It can be a 1950s Willys. They're going to wave. It's just a community. You're a Jeep owner. You're in.